Right, thank you. You know, there's an issue in my district, town of Mina, and I appreciate Assemblywoman Russell bringing up the fact that there are communities that, by the determinations and the qualifications that are put forward by the state, are excluded from participation. And the town of Mina is one because they have issues, and now they're trying to set up a sewer district as we speak, and as a result of that, they do not qualify for the program. So I would hope that we could work together to look at some of those issues and come to resolution. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And finally, I'm glad Senator Little brought up the 480A program. And you said that, I believe you said that there's some, I know you've been working on it, but there's some kind of proposal that will be out soon?
We've been working on a proposal. We don't have a bill, for example, drafted, but we will be sitting down with, and we have been sitting down with stakeholders to discuss the 480A program writ large.
So you don't anticipate it would be in the 30-day amendments?
At this time, I do not.
Okay, thank you. And so as a result, then it probably wouldn't be solved until another year at least?
Well, we're certainly going to look at 480A this year, and to the extent we can make a dent in it in 2015 or 2016, we will. But this will come out in the context of our discussions with the stakeholders and the legislature.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Assemblyman Otis. No, I'm sorry. Assemblyman Lopez. Otis, isn't it?
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I'll jump right in. Just if I can, in your testimony, we talked about the Clean Energy Fund. And so my quick question is that intended for independent power producers or end users?
Assemblyman, I'm going to defer to, if it's okay with you, to DPS and NYSERDA to answer that. Clean Energy Fund will be managed by them.
Just going to highlight something just for your purpose in terms of a team approach. I see two issues. If it is IPPs, one, we're going to need to look at the rate of reimbursement to the IPPs. That's been an issue for them for a long time. It's prevented a number of independent power producers from coming online. And two, if we're talking about using renewables, we need to be more prepared for intermittent energy production. And I would suggest to you respectfully that we need to look at energy storage. I use the Blenheim-Gilboa Pump Storage Project in my district as an example of where the state could be beneficial as a partner. Moving on the climate change mitigation, just a request, and again, as we look at resiliency, I know we've had long conversations about that in my district.
We have.
Irene and Lee took their fair share of communities out. I would suggest respectfully that those who have been impacted by natural disasters, whether it's Sandy, Irene, Lee, et cetera, be given prioritization, and that projects that have a demonstrated impact in resiliency should find their way to a priority in the pecking order. I just would leave that with you. Moving on to the next issue, on environmental justice, just a quick note. I would hope that as we look at environmental justice, we also look at rural areas and the intrusion of power lines, pipelines, gas pipelines, oil pipelines, running amok, if you would, at this point, with no rhyme or reason through homes, businesses, families, et cetera. So environmental justice, I know, is often an urban, but rural areas are becoming crossroads with no rhyme or reason.
That's a good point.
Next, on the infrastructure, I concur with my colleagues, particularly those representing rural areas. We need to conduct some sort of sensitivity analysis on ability to pay. And the issue of cost per household has market impact on the advancement of projects. And I'll use the hamlet of Central Bridge in my own home community as an example. We can talk about that later. I'll just move quickly, use my time wisely here. In terms of the issue of the forest rangers and tourism, on page 1 of your testimony, you talked about attention to the Catskills. We've engaged with your office constructively on issues of protecting life and property in the Catskill Park. Particularly, we've talked about the Catskill Falls area. Your team has done immeasurable good work there. But the issue of attendance to growing tourism and threat to human safety is an issue. I'm respectfully suggesting we look at the timber harvesting dollars and see if we're truly maximizing return on state lands and maybe see if there's a way on a sustained basis to increase that target number and use that for dedicated staff to protect life and property.
We'd be happy to do that. I mean, I have some good news on that front. You may be aware in the last 2 years, we've actually not only increased timber sales in state lands sustainably 50%, but also increased the revenue to $6 million, which is actually a record for us.
And my suggestion respectfully be to look at tourism and particularly protection of life and property on forested lands in the watershed, in the park, Catskill Park, et cetera, to use some of those lands as a dedicated source, as we're doing for the waste tire recycling fee for solid waste.
I'd be happy to talk with you about that. Sure.
Quickly, in terms of, and this was not addressed, I didn't see it in your testimony, I haven't really seen it. In the issue of solid waste, I continue to be horrified at reports within my district of going through the process, and I hate to say the facade of source separation and recycling, only to hear that waste is landfilled and in worst cases commingled with garbage. Very frustrating. And my premise would be, I think we need to look at revenues, whether it's bottle bill or others, to set up funds to help incentivize the private sector to bring recycling businesses online rather than look at them as anomalies. So I just would encourage your office, and we're happy to be part of this, to look at ways of mainstreaming recycling businesses as sustainable economically, and look at that, what potentials there are. Again, it's very frustrating in that regard. So my time is done, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Senator Tom O'Mara.
Thank you, Senator. Commissioner, to follow up on some of the comments that made by some of my colleagues and yourself and follow up to their questions, I just want to reiterate my concerns on invasive species and the eradication efforts that have been talked about, particularly in getting aid to localities and to lake owners associations to help with really the annual maintenance efforts that take place to deal with things such as the Eurasian milfoil that may be a more common, it's been around longer than the other hot button issues of hydrilla or the emerald ash borer and things of the like, but those are still critically important to the viability of our freshwater lakes and the recreational uses of those just in conjunction with the water quality. So I want to make sure that we have efforts going in that way, and I appreciate Senator Young having brought up the e-waste issue, because that was an issue that I wanted to get to, and I have a recycler in my district that has particular concerns over the CRTs and the lack of reimbursement to the point where he has to stop taking them at this point because he can't afford to do it without those. So we really need some greater attention put to that, and I look forward to working with you and the department on a resolution to that, and if possible, to do something for the 30-day amendments in that regard. I think would be very helpful to get that ball rolling.
It's a good idea. Thank you.
On an issue, the Lake Ontario Water Level Plan 2014, what is the department's role in that ongoing process right now that to change the lake levels in Lake Ontario will benefit certain parts of the river primarily, but some alleged marginal improvement to our wetlands that surround the lake, but at grave risk of Lake Ontario shoreline property owners. And when we talk about waterfront improvement money that we have in the budget here of $15 million, is in very small comparison to the figures that I've seen on the potential consequences and devastation to the shoreline of Lake Ontario should that plan be put into effect. So I don't know if you can share your thoughts on that, or where the governor is on this Plan 2014, because it's something that's been kicking around again for a long time. And I know it's a federal issue more than it's a state issue, but I think they will be looking to either the governor or the department on what the thoughts are on that.
Senator, you're right, it is a federal issue. It's the International Joint Commission, which is Canada and the U.S., and our State Department is running most of the preliminary work on it. We are in regular contact with the State Department to assess their review of the plan. To my knowledge, it has not yet advanced in any meaningful way out for consideration. So we're certainly waiting to see what the State Department's take is on it, and whether or not the federal government would be proposing any federal dollars to support the effort. I also hear the same concerns that you do about potential erosion on the lake, accelerated by some slight increases to the water levels. I also hear about the benefits as well. I mean, I am partly conflicted in this, as I have a piece of family property on the shoreline of the St. Lawrence River. So my personal feelings aside about it, the governor has not yet made any decisions on this. We're certainly assessing the plan as it has changed considerably over the last 4 years. There was originally a 1958 decision, which became a 2012 modification. Now it's Plan 2014, so it's sort of changed over time. And assuming that it doesn't change any further, we will give it a very hard look when it comes to us. And if indeed it goes forward from the federal government's perspective, we would look to ensure that there are no losers on this and that there are only winners as far as erosion concerns are concerned.
Okay, thank you. And just to wrap up on some of the forestry issues here, we have a lot of forestry land that's state-controlled, but it's my understanding that about 75% of New York's forests are privately owned. Mm-hmm. How is the carbon mitigation and adaptation accounting for assisting these forests, the privately owned ones as well as the state ones, given the critical role that forests play in carbon mitigation and the importance of them in the whole cycle? What, if anything, is being devoted in the EPF currently that's detailed, or do you see a role of the EPF playing in this to assist the maintenance of our forested lands?
Well, Senator, I would agree that our forests, the sequestration of carbon in our forests is going to be a major component of how the state responds to climate change over the long term. Part of that's going to mean we need to have healthy forests. So healthy forests are in some ways managed, sometimes they're protected. We have on the management side, we've been doing a better job of managing our forests and cutting stands that are in a sustainable way. On the acquisition side, not private property, but on the public acquisition side, we're setting aside more forests for the long term to serve as those sinks, those carbon sinks. We need to do a better job in helping private landowners in managing their forests as well. There's a place for it. We've certainly talked about it. We need to find a way forward for that, and we need to do so in a way that helps communities at the same time and taxpayers.
Finally, and I'm out of town, on the environmental justice grants, could we expect to see some more detail in the 30-day amendments on exactly how that's going to be spent? And I would like some more detail on what exactly your thought process is on the citizen testing component of the air quality monitoring and how that would work. Do we expect more detail on these coming with the 30-day amendments?
We can certainly provide more details to you on both those fronts, and I'll have to get back to you whether or not it's going to be within the 30-day amendments or otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Assemblyman Otis.
Hello, Commissioner. Thank you for being here. I want to thank you, and the popularity of the water grant program is further reinforced by the fact that you got so many positive comments about it today. And I want to hit a different focus on it, but first compliment you and the governor and EFC for how successful the rollout was to the program. And people may not generally be aware all the effort that went into having that be a successful startup, and the fact that you added the $25 million in federal funding. So the real number right now with the governor's proposal is actually $325 million, the plan for what is going to be spent. And so the question is, there is I want to suggest another metric for looking at the case for more, the need for more money on an urgent basis for this program, which is communities around the state that are either under a consent decree or other kinds of DEC or EPA enforcement actions. Some of them may never ripen to a consent decree, but they're enforcement actions nonetheless. And to see if we can try and together look at that as a way of looking at how urgent the need is and making the case for trying to drive more money to the program. A lot of communities around the state we had, I understand, $800 million worth of applications for the first $50 million. And many communities did not apply because you have to do a certain amount of the engineering first. So there are going to be new applications in the 2016 round. But what can, EFC would not necessarily have the full list of people, municipalities that are under enforcement actions, because if they don't apply, EFC doesn't really know about it. DEC may, but I would suggest not for an answer today, but as another way of trying to get a number of what and how time-sensitive the need is. I would also add one other thing. One component part of this that is so valuable is the fact that it's a grant and not a loan. And so one of the things that we saw was that communities that had not applied for the revolving loan fund before now are making contact with EFC. And so maybe you could talk to some of those issues, and this is a program we need, but again, compliments to everybody for a successful rollout. That doesn't always happen. It did in this case.
Thank you. I can tell you that, just to clarify, the demand on the grant program in round one was $250 million, not 800. So between drinking water and clean water, wastewater, that was the total. On to the success of the program. I mean, it was obviously very well received. We rolled it out quickly. We knew it would be subscribed and we'd be able to move those funds. EFC does have good visibility into the consent orders out there. We have a decent list at DEC. We share it regularly with EFC. Part of EFC's scoring, in fact, is and always has been partly related to whether or not a municipality is under a consent order. So if there is a consent order in place, in fact, they've got at least a point towards their ability to get wastewater or drinking water funding. But we will continue to look at how to merge the two so we can start solving some of these problems on a more regular basis. The
larger number I was talking about was not necessarily what they applied for the grant money, but the dollar value of the projects they need to do to do those projects.
Okay.
But it's just a great start, and so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the governor for his support of an additional $100 million, and I think we want to try to work together for more.
Thank you.
Second question, the governor's proposing a nice increase for the municipal recycling grant program, and in the Assembly we're doing a survey to try and get a handle on what I would call hard to recycle items. Some of that is electronic waste, which you've been commented on previously, but it's almost a doubling of the amount to that grant program. Does DEC have ideas on how to maybe better target that money so that it has an impact on trying to expand what in some parts of the state they're not accepting everything that others are, and we try to have expand what people include and what they're willing to take in for recycling, but they need resources to arm up for that.
Right. Well, the EPF has for many years funded recycling. There's a significant backlog still. I believe that this year the backlog is $60 million. Thank you, Julie. So last year we had a $7.5 million line. This year we're going to bump that up to 14. So our goal right now is to begin eliminating some of that significant backlog. It's going to take a few years to happen. At the same time, while we're doing these, pushing these grants out, we will be talking. I mean, our programs do talk regularly statewide about, recycling, zero waste, getting to the point where communities can become more sustainable. One of the problems right now, frankly, in recycling is just the commodities markets are not in good shape. So we're gonna do what we can to push funding out the door for municipalities to do recycling. We certainly will always look to help foster markets where we can, but the commodities markets, it's sort of an international issue right now that, you know, peaks and troughs, it makes it difficult when we hit a trough, and that's what we're heading towards.
Well,
Thank
on
you,
all fronts.
Assemblyman.
Thank you. Thank the governor.
Assemblyman,
Oh, no, wait, one more. Sorry.
Senator,
Thank you. Senator Brad Hoylman.
Thank you, Senator Kruger. Nice to see you again.
to see you.
Question for you, not about DEER, but about DERA, the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act. You know, it was signed into law 10 years ago to reduce emissions of fine particulate matter from diesel exhaust from heavy-duty vehicles. And it's been, the goal was to require the state fleet and contractors to be entirely retrofitted with filters by 2010. We've moved that goalpost 5 times. Extensions in the last 4 budgets have resulted in that. And it's of concern to me because in my district on the west side of Manhattan, we have a tremendous amount of construction occurring. We have the Hudson Yards, a completely new city,
Right.
virtually. We have plans for the new Port Authority bus terminal, the governor's exciting announcement on Moynihan Station and the renovation of Penn Station, the Gateway Tunnel project, and everything else that comes along with that robust real estate market. So I'm concerned about diesel exhaust in that neighborhood. And given your renewed emphasis on environmental justice, I would assume that that ties into the reduction of fine particulate matter, which is linked directly to asthma, particularly in disadvantaged communities. Do you foresee another delay in DERA? I know the governor hasn't proposed it, and I thank you for that. But what would be your position headed into this budget negotiation?
Well, I would rather not speculate on what might be coming on that. What I can tell you on DERA is that the state has made significant strides for the agencies that are reporting compliance with DERA. While not 100%, are at a fairly impressive 82% right now. I mean, partly it's, you know, since the law has passed, time has passed, and there's been wear and tear in old machines, and there's turnover now. And the turnover, thankfully, favors cleaner vehicles. You know, DERA is obviously an important law, but our compliance now and the market having shifted over the years has made it, you know, perhaps less of an urgent matter because we will continue to turn our fleets over time.
Do we have an accounting of that? Do you know what percentage of the state fleet is compliant?
I can get you the accounting. I know that the high number is 82% as a total. But I can get you the accounting on how the whole state breaks out.
Thank you. And in the program book, it states that the administration will work with the legislature to adopt the Child Safe Products Act. You know, that's been an issue of concern among a number of my colleagues, including me, and the problem with toxins in toys is obviously something that needs to be addressed. Can you explain what you mean by working with the legislature and what you foresee?
Well, I think the governor recognizes that their toxic toys as an issue needs to be addressed. We, last year, worked very closely with both the Senate and the Assembly on different bills, tried to find common ground on that, and we'll do so again this year. There may well be a role for DEC. There may be a role for other agencies as well. Given that it's a gubernatorial priority, we will again invest our efforts to see if we can get it across the finish line.
Could it be a program bill?
I think at this point, I mean, given that there are 2 bills out there, at least from last year, I'm not sure we'll introduce a program bill on it and try to work perhaps off what's already existing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, next is Assemblyman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning still. Could never
Yesterday
know
was a
here,
long
though.
day, so.
Yeah.
Let me, I represent the areas of Sunset Park and Red Hook in Brooklyn. We have what we call the BQE. The BQE comes from Staten Island all the way down to the Battery Tunnel. Both sides, Manhattan and Staten Island, they enjoy the toll because but I get the emissions that is coming out of all the vehicles. So we get all the asthma rate, the high asthma rate in my community. One other thing that I would like to request to you is if it's doable and possible to ask your agency to do a study to address the issue of emission and carbon monoxide that is coming out of so many vehicles that use the BQE. As you probably know, most of the time if you put 10 wind at 6 a.m. in the morning, the first thing I do is to check to see whether or not I can take the BQE. And believe me, you cannot take the BQE. You have to go through 4th Avenue, you have to jump 3rd Avenue. And as a result of that, we do have, next to the BQE, we have around 7 schools adjacent to the BQE. And that's creating a very health issue to our community in Sunset Park. And Sunset Park is an underserved community. It's a minority community which adverse impact to Red Hook as well. On the second issue is the brownfield. As you know, Sunset Park, Red Hook, and as well as the Gowanus Canal money has been allocated to begin to remove some of the brownfield, but money has been shortchanged. It is possible that you can tell us how many brownfield sites have received a certificate of completion at this point?
I don't have those numbers on hand, Assemblyman, but I certainly can get those to you. I know we have a lot of activity down in Brooklyn along the waterfront from brownfields, also the Brownfields Opportunity Area Program, which is administered by Department of State and our state Superfund. The toxic legacy of the Manhattan or the New York waterfront certainly presents many challenges, but I can get you the full details. We'll get you a spreadsheet on that shortly.
Okay. And regarding also the funding, the funding that is go to groups, will be kind if the agency will be able to let the members know when that fund is coming available to the groups. Most of the time, we are finding that this brownfields allocation funding has been granted through the newspaper or through a press release. And sometimes the organization call upon us, and I give you the name of the organization, OPROS, for example, who does a lot of environmental work. And not only they does a lot of environmental work, but they include the middle school students and high school students. So they are the pioneers of the visionaries of the environment to trying to educate them to take over. And when we find out some of the group that we thought that been funded, they are not being funded. And they've been doing a lot of great job in our community. So for the future, I would recommend that before the beautiful press release go out, that the agency will be kind enough to let the members know. We all work together to make sure that we can secure. Our chairman worked very diligent to make sure that, together with the speaker and the members, that this money we allocated to communities such as the one that we represent. On the last question, I would like to ask you quickly is regarding the, if you can comment, I don't know if you will be able to comment, but to comment on the department position on the use of carbon tax as a means of addressing encouraging renewable energy sources and discouraging the use of non-renewables like fossil fuels as a means of reducing carbon emission. And that is an assembly bill that I have. So.
Okay. Did you say carbon tax?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, certainly carbon taxes are used in many jurisdictions in Europe and elsewhere. We're always looking at the best way to control carbon. We explore all the various approaches we have. I mean, and I'll let my energy colleagues talk about how to manage carbon most effectively. I mean, our approach has been to try to do this through the marketplace and through mandates. But there's a discussion to be had about the carbon tax. It will happen, it has happened, and we will be part of that discussion.
Well, I hope that you can include in the last question, I thought that was the last question, but everybody was mentioning about the water system. And I just a quick question about what you have learned from Flynn and what mechanism are you planning to now begin to implement to ensure that our water quality continue to be the best of the best in New York State.